Is another episode of the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Wes Cheng alongside Jim Stechschulte. Thanks so much for joining us on this Monday, February 17, 2025, President's Day. We've got so much to talk about as always. We start with Syracuse basketball, who lost again, this time to North Carolina, 88-82 on Saturday. Syracuse trailed for most of the game, came all the way back to tie it, and just had too many turnovers and costly mistakes down the stretch. Jim, what did you think of the game, and where does this leave Syracuse with 5 games left in the season?
Well, a big part of what you said, costly mistakes. They did a lot of this themselves, just defensive lapses or poor plays on offense. It just, they've had a problem all year stringing together consistently solid play. Even and obviously for a team like them without a whole lot of margin for error, it ends up biting them a lot. And they dropped another game where they were competitive and could have even won. I think it was their 7th game this season that they've lost within 7 points, and it just makes you wonder, like, what if, a play here, a play there, whatever. And as far as the rest of the season goes, I know some of the talk is a big deal is about just making sure the team makes the ACC tournament because you only have to finish in the top 15 of 18 teams to do it. The team does enter this week they're tied in 14th place in the conference with Cal, but they have a 1.5 game lead on the team right behind them in 16th place, which is NC State, who they'll see here in about a week and a half. And I think that game in itself is going to do a large part of determining whether or not they make the ACC tournament.
Yeah, so Jim, all those things you said were true, right? I think in the post game, starting with the actual game itself, Eddie Lampkin said, and I quote, "Turnovers and boxing out, I feel like that could have changed the game," end quote. And it's not like Syracuse hasn't been there before. You mentioned that stat about Syracuse losing all those close games within a 7-point margin. And I'm looking at close losses like at Miami, against Pitt at home, relatively pure schools where Syracuse was in it until the end and they just lose in similar fashion, whether that's a loose ball, a bad shot. I know you're going to have something on a bad shot later. In Lampkin's case, he had a key turnover late, and that's the difference between being 11-15, which is what they are now, and maybe trending around toward Mount 500. But, to your second question, where does this leave Syracuse? I think you pointed to that game against NC State, which is currently 3-11 in conference. And that's really the only game I think they'll be favored down the stretch. Could they win at Virginia Tech and at BC? Can they win at home against Virginia? Yeah, they can. Maybe they get one win in that stretch. But the other game is against SMU on the road. They're 10-4 right now in conference. So I think best case scenario, 2-3 in the final 5 games is what you can hope for here. And that should be enough to put them safely in the ACC tournament if they go 2-3 in the last 5.
Yeah, the NC State game does look like the most positive one. The Wolfpack just won their last game against Boston College, and that stopped a 9-game losing streak in conference. So they're not just struggling; they've been reeling, frankly. And the other thing that helps out SU is that their bye week, their open slot comes this weekend, so they'll have a week off before they play NC State. And like the rest of the good thing about the rest of that stretch is, SMU aside, is there are some games that Syracuse should be competitive against. As you mentioned, they play at Pittsburgh on Tuesday. They're at Virginia Tech on March 1st, and they close the season on March 8th with Virginia at home. All 3 of those teams are 6-8 in conference, so none of them have been wowing anyone. We know Pitt already beat the Orange at the JMA Dome, but they just ended a 4-game slide, including a loss to Virginia by beating Miami, who is one of the teams that doesn't look like they're going to make the ACC tournament. And Virginia Tech has won 3 of 5, but one of those is a win over Virginia, and some of the other also rans in the conference. And Virginia themselves, they look good because they've won 3 in a row and 5 out of the 7. But all those wins have been against teams that are under 500 in the ACC. And then now their schedule's going to that hot streak is probably going to get smashed to bits because they play 4 of the 6 top teams in the ACC before they close the season at Syracuse. So again, all 3 of those games should be competitive, as well as the North Carolina State game, which, as you said, the Orange should be favored in.
So, Jim, we move on. The recruiting never stops in the football world, even if we're in the middle of a dead period. So the Juice Online learning that Darnell Stokes, a 2026 wide receiver and defensive back out of Delaware, will be visiting Syracuse either March 21 or 22. We've been following that recruitment for a long time here at the Juice. Jim, you've watched the tape. What are you seeing there?
Honestly, I think he's a player who has great potential to grow. He's known at his size at 6'2" and 185. That 6'2" makes him taller than average for a wide receiver, and even taller than average if he plays on a defensive back. He listed 6'2", 185. So he's a long, lanky athlete. It's possible that maybe he's got another half inch or even an inch of growth into him. There's no guarantee he's done growing. But the other thing I also like is he's a speed guy. he actually posts in his Twitter bio. This is a hint for some of you who just like to see social media of prospects, is they put in stuff in their social media bios that they want coaches to know, whether it's like Stokes has his height and weight and his track times. Other players like specialists, like a long snapper or kicker or punter, will put their GPA and their SAT score in their bio because they're like saying, hey, I can walk onto your team with a little help because I might be able to get a regular scholarship. But anyway, by having his 200-meter and 100-meter track times in his bio, Stokes has advertised that he's got wheels too. And so by just participating in track and field team as a sprinter, it's also participating in speed training. So we expect that he can still possibly develop and even get faster than what he is currently.
Yeah, so Jim, we've spoken with Darnell throughout his recruiting process. He said consistently during the times I spoke to him that Syracuse is at the top of the list. He didn't change the story when I spoke to him over the weekend, and I'm told Syracuse is recruiting him as an athlete, so he's going to potentially play, both sides of the field. We'll see what side he ends up on. But one other guy to look out for in the 2026 class, Xavier Jackson from Bergen Catholic, former stomping grounds of Nunzio Campanelli, and also in Fran Brown's footprint of South Jersey. He tells the Juice Online he's visiting March 28th and 29th. Three-star prospect whose offer sheet includes some prime competition in Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Purdue, among others. So that's definitely a recruitment we'll want to keep an eye out for as well. So just a lot of prospects lining up their visits for Syracuse in spring practice. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and Jackson, like Stokes, it has similar size, 6'2", 185. So if he's playing defensive back, that would make him a very big, long cornerback, which is an appealing trait because most of the cornerbacks tend to be 6 foot or shorter. And you mentioned he got an offer from Minnesota. So the guy who offered him, former Syracuse defensive backs coach, known as the Swag Daddy.
Swag Daddy.
Swag Daddy. Nick Monroe. So it makes sense though, but it's nice to have Fran Brown in hand to work against the charms of the Swag Daddy, shall we say. Brown being personally involved in Jackson's recruiting process underscores the importance that Brown has on signing him, as well as playing up his relationship from his New Jersey roots, especially the Bergen area.
So we're going to take a quick break. 2028 quarterback AJ Chung, he holds a Syracuse offer. He'll join us when we return. This is the Juice on the Cuse podcast. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from the NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC. BetOnline continues to be your number one betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng here with you. We are thrilled to be joined by 2028 quarterback AJ Chung. AJ, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. It's a pleasure to be here and excited to talk.
Yeah, AJ, I want to get you started on this one. In January, you received an offer from Syracuse. So just to start off, what did you think of the Syracuse offer?
I mean, it was definitely a great experience to receive one of the offers, like my first upcoming offers. And it was like, overall, I just thought it was good for me, my recruiting profile and stuff like that. But overall, it was a great experience, like to be there and actually feel of the moment.
So before we get more into that, let's just talk about what you know about Syracuse. What did you think of the Syracuse offense watching them in 2024?
I mean, as a pro-style passer and loving the scheme with the spread offense, being able to see Syracuse having one of the top passing offenses in the nation, how they move the ball against top teams across the country, it stood out to me, and it was definitely a great thing to know and great thing to see and to possibly be a part of.
Yeah, so I watch your tape, and obviously we've both seen Kyle McCord play. I see a lot of similarities. I hope you see them too, about someone who just threw for 4,776 yards.
Yes, he's a baller for sure. Hopefully he does good at this combine. But overall, the quick reads he likes to make, the shots he wants to do with his matchups, the progressions he goes through, his footwork, his timing. Overall, I think as a great quarterback is some things that I match to my game pretty well. So he has success. The success that he does and some things that he do. So overall, his game is astounding to me, as we share a lot of similarities.
Yeah, so let's talk about, how the process went. So you received the offer from Syracuse after you worked out with wide receivers coach Ross Douglas. So just in terms of, just tell me about that workout itself and what they put you through and kind of what you did in your progressions.
Well, it was a pretty like odd experience, to be honest, because I was throwing at my high school. We were going over after school. Was me and a couple receivers. We were just getting work in, and Coach Douglas. I don't know if he was there for someone else, but he was watching us. He wanted to see me throw some, so we got down. We ran a couple routes. I threw probably about 60 balls or so.
Wow.
I was going dig routes, post routes, just a lot of progressions and like certain drop steps to what he wanted to see, and he liked my game, and he went over to me and said he was going to offer me.
Oh, that's amazing. So, again, he goes over to he offers you, but you guys had to have spoken about hopefully other stuff besides just the offer. And I'm sure he talked to you about Dart. He talked to you a little bit about Syracuse.
Yes, overall, he said that their program. He talked about their passing scheme. They didn't dive too into depth about what some of the stuff they do, like on X's and O's wise, but overall, like what the offense is stood by in their quarterback and the quarterback friendly system. He was talking how like the way I spin the ball and on mechanics. So we discussed that like briefly, and then I continued on like with my workout.
So AJ, Syracuse is just one offer. It's a Syracuse podcast, but there are other schools that have offered you, Purdue, Arkansas. How does it feel to explode on this recruiting scene and just rack up all these offers?
I mean, definitely feels amazing, but at the end of the day, I gotta stay humble, continue the grind of what I do in my mechanics. But it's definitely a great feeling to have all the hard work and like the stuff I've been putting into for the past years. I've been playing football to actually starting to get noticed because I know what I can do. I just need other people to see what I can do. So it's definitely, like I said earlier, surreal, but it's definitely it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's heartwarming, but it's also like great to actually have that ability to like say that I'm definitely becoming someone I wished in my dreams when I was younger.
Yeah, it's the baller's mentality, right? It's just the beginning of something even better for you. So I know it's early. You're 2028 quarterback. You got a couple years to really even think about and let the offers roll in. But at the moment, any of these offers standing out to you?
I mean, definitely Syracuse, but the education for me is very important. So, and like as a football player, like offensive wise, like this is still early, really early in my recruiting. So I'm not really sure what's top and decisions and stuff like that, but that'll come later. But all the schools, all the options, I'm grateful for, and I'm excited to have this opportunity. But I'm not really sure right now. But definitely, any school that gives me any interest is definitely one of my top choices.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You mentioned it in this next question, but certainly education and getting that education and walking out in 3 to 4 years with a degree is important. What else do you look for in a college?
I mean, I look for in a college definitely relationship, communication, reaching out, because like I'm an X's and O guy. Like I love concepts, I love coverages, I love going over all this stuff. So communication, of course, but also certain degrees that I would like to get. I'm still not sure what I want to do in my career yet, but overall, getting the education and having a good degree to my name for life after football definitely means a lot to me in a college that I would like to choose.
Yeah, so AJ, we'll get you out of here on this one. We've talked about. I looked at your film. I know a lot of coaches have. What's a good NFL comparison for you?
Like definitely 2011 Aaron Rodgers. I love to throw the ball. I'm a gunslinger, but I take care of the ball. Like I don't throw that many interceptions. I'm very decisive in what I do. I'll get out of the pocket when I have to, but I'm looking for to make a play down the field with my arm, in my decisiveness, in my IQ. So I base my game around him, especially since I'm gonna wear the number 12 because like that's what I've been wearing all youth football. This year it wasn't that number, but definitely would try to wear it this year. But I definitely model my game around him. And definitely that's how I think a lot of my comparison would go to what he does.
Yeah, not so bad to model yourself after a multi-time NFL MVP at quarterback. So, AJ, we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for taking a couple minutes with us. Certainly going to be tracking your recruitment as it comes along, and we'll definitely catch up with you soon. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng alongside Jim Stechschulte. Jim, we're right at the end of our show. You got a closing thought for us?
I do, actually. We spoke earlier about how the Syracuse basketball team doesn't have a whole lot of margin for error, and their loss on Saturday to North Carolina was another close contested game. In fact, with just under 40 seconds to go, Carolina scored to go up 84-80, and there was plenty of time for the Orange to continue what they had been doing, which was trying to score just quick baskets and foul, make Tar Heels make free throws to keep them at arm's distance. The next possession on offense, they would swing the ball a couple times, and Kyle Cuff Jr. gets the ball on the left wing. He's wide open, and he takes the three. Before that shot, Cuff was shooting 28.8% from three on the season and was currently on a 2-for-12 cold streak, which covered these 7 most recent games. Shot missed, Carolina rebounds, Syracuse fouls, they make their free throws. Game's virtually over at that point. Here's the thing. Cuff is one of the best free throw shooters on the team, sporting a 77.8% shooting mark from the line. Smarter play would have been for Cuff to drive to the basket like he has done many, many times, and aggressive drives particularly, and draw that whistle, have them call the foul. Yes, the refs do have to blow the whistle and call the foul, but they'd already called 3 defensive fouls on North Carolina in the last minute plus of the game at that point, so they weren't choking on their whistles. Based on Cuff's percentages, the 3-point shot had an expected value of under 0.9 of a point. Driving the line and getting 2 foul shots would have been closer to 1.6 points. And that's if he doesn't make the free throw. So I understand you want to play with confidence and you want your guys to shoot if they feel they can make it. At the same time, players have to know the situation and make the right play in it, especially because the Orange have that small margin for error.
Walt Clyde Frazier, one of my favorite color announcers, always said, stop the clock and take points off the board when you're down late. And that's certainly a missed opportunity for Kyle Cuff there. Jim, wanted to move to lacrosse here. Syracuse suffering their first loss of the season to drop to 3-1, this time in a road loss to Maryland, 11-7. Syracuse actually led the game at halftime 5-4, but really got stifled in the second half. Only 2 goals to show after intermission. This is a team that does have championship aspirations, came into the weekend ranked 2nd in the country. But I think what Saturday's game showed us is they really have a lot to work on. It's early in the year, and it's good to see that they matched up against an elite team. And mostly they didn't get blown out. They held their own. But that vaunted offense that scored 24 goals in the opener against Jacksonville, only scoring 7 all afternoon. So we'll just have to see how they rebound against 17th ranked Harvard back at the JMA Wireless Dome this Saturday. That's it for us. For Jim Stechschulte, this is Wes Cheng. You've been listening to the Juice on the Cuse podcast presented by Believe in Rivals, and we will see you next time.